Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to allow just a couple of minutes for the rest of our attendees to enter, but as we're getting started here, wanted to be able to share a bit about what the I-Corps Site Ignite program is. So this is a new program offered through Washington University and the Skandalaris Center that we want to be able to allow deep tech cohort coming through, but also be able to prepare others to be able to join cohorts across the state and find opportunities for funding and to be able to advance your venture. So I know some of you were in our first cohort. There will be a little bit of refreshing of what the customer discovery process is, how to go about interviewing, but it's a very valuable skill as you're going out and starting your startup is talking to customers and learning what it means to be able to solve a problem that they have. So that's where we'll be getting started. And I'm going to go ahead and really excited to share that we have a national instructor with us here today. So I would like to introduce Nikia Milicio. So Nikia has helped successful startups and developed businesses worldwide, United States, Australia, United Kingdom, Canada, Nigeria, Ghana. And Nikia's passion is business advisor, deep tech, deep science mentor, and startup coach that inspires and helps entrepreneurs and startups spin out university technology. We have some people in the audience today that are doing some university research. So Nikia is a fantastic resource here. He has worked with over 700 startups worldwide and over 15,000 hours of classroom instruction working with entrepreneurs. We are so grateful for your time here with us today, Nikia. He is an active member and mentor of the technology community with the National Science Foundation, Innovation Corps, NSF Corps program, the Association of University Technology Managers, and Hacking for Defense instructor. So we have an Innovating for Defense program here at Washington University that some of you may be aware of. And we are so thankful for everyone that's been able to join us here for the for I-Corps. There is a great overlap with not only I-Corps, Hacking for Defense, Innovating for Defense, but the Defense Innovation Accelerator. And that's where Nikia and I were able to meet each other going through that program. So I wanted to be able to share in the chat here that we have a great opportunity for anyone that may be interested in joining. The Defense Innovation Accelerator will be accepting a new cohort that will be closing out on April 2nd. So I am going to drop a little link here in the chat for anybody that might be interested in this really unique opportunity. It is defense-funded research and development that they are looking to partner with entrepreneurs and innovators to be able to bring this research from the labs to the industry. And this is meant to help the warfighter and to be able to advance research that has been made some great breakthroughs, but has not had the opportunity for commercialization. So Nikia was a fantastic mentor in that program. I was very fortunate to get to know him, and I'm thankful for your time here with us today, Nikia. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your experience with NSF Corps and DIA?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's been for me, it's been great to be a part of both of the organizations. They're both really great organizations, the DIA, especially coupled that with Hack for Defense and all of the folks at Ensign. And to really hear some of the cool technologies that these researchers are working on. One of the ones that I worked on was dealing with quantum entanglement from dealing with underwater submarines and being able to make the submarines stealth-like. So I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff that you wouldn't even think that was humanly possible through the DIA Defense Innovation Network. And to be able to work closely with a lot of these laboratories, such as NASA, such as DOD, such as Department of Energy, the Army, the Air Force, and to see some of their technology needs and to have to be able to work with students and faculty to help expand some of those opportunities and some of those research. So it's been really good to be a part of that. And I've worked with several of those teams, still working with some of those teams, and have commercialized some of their technology. And since they're such advanced technologies, they typically have a lot of follow-on funding, or they usually end up in like a CRADA or something like that that can kind of further the research with you and the researchers at those federal laboratories. So it's a great opportunity. If nothing else, it can pivot into a whole different career that you didn't even think of, and working for one of these federal laboratories. And that can also be a really great thing. So, and as for iCore, man, I can tell you this: if you have research and you really think that there's a commercial application, iCore is the place for you, and NSF iCore, because it really gives you the opportunity to really understand not about the tech, but the technology from the customer's perspective, and being able to walk through the whole mentoring, the whole customer discovery process. And so I kind of wear two hats as you know, doing the instructor and doing the mentoring through the process. And I can tell you this, that it's eye opening for each researcher to think, hey, there is this very specific thing that I know everybody wants. But then when you go talk to industry and customers, and then they say, well, that's not quite how we use that. And then to see how you can kind of translate and how it goes back and impacts your research. And I remember the last team that I was mentoring through iCore, and it was actually a Georgia Tech team. And I actually work at Georgia Tech, one of a research faculty at Georgia Tech. And the team that I was working with, they had came up with a computational mathematical model that predicts what is the best feeding strategies for cells, which in turn, you know, more cells that you can grow, the more product that you can yield, more drugs, and everybody's wonderful. But it's interesting how everything that they thought from their laboratory to what industry and Pfizer and Amgen and all of these big pharmaceutical companies and their process, there was a huge gap in disparity between what they thought and what industry thought. And so they would have never known that had they not done NSF iCore to give them the understanding of what does it really look like from lab to market, from ideation to commercialization. So, and I'll kind of go into some of those things when I present later, but iCore is a great place, and I strongly encourage all entrepreneurs, if you have research that you think have commercialization potential, to intersect with iCore at some point.
That was a great introduction. Thank you so much. And as you mentioned, why it's so important to be able to share this opportunity to get your research out. And so as you're advancing what you're working on, the only way you're going to know if you have the right problem is if you start talking to customers. It's not about the solution. You cannot create something amazing in your lab and people will find out about it. The term I think that throws people off, if you build a better mousetrap, people will beat a path to your door. That doesn't happen. You need to be able to talk to customers and make sure you're solving a problem that they're willing to pay for. So we want to use this opportunity to reinforce the importance of customer discovery, talking to people that care about what you're creating and find out if there's other things that you might be missing. So I'm going to jump into it and sharing some slides here, talking a little bit of recap of what we had shared in our first session. And with that, can everybody see that okay? Great. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about value proposition and product market fit. So as we're going through, we are going to be talking about the customer a lot. The customer is going to be the most important person in this discussion because we want to make sure that we are solving their problem. So as we are going through, none of this was created by Nakia and myself. This was developed. A lot of these are pulled from Strategizer. And this is something that you will hear a lot from Steve Blank, and what he shares with the Hacking for Defense program is looking at what are the problems that your customer has. So the customer profile, understanding what they are lacking, and called pains and gains. So as you see here, what is a problem that they're solving and what are the services that need to be rendered to be able to solve the jobs to be done? So in our last session, we talked a little bit about customer discovery. And what's important with that is we want to be able to make sure that we know the problem that we are working toward. So we start with a vision. And most of the time, as researchers, we start with a vision is that solution. And we know the problem and we think we know it from the customer's perspective, but it's very important to take a step back and talk to those customers. This is the easiest, most cost-effective way to make sure you are developing something people care about. In the customer discovery process, you're looking for this problem solution fit. And this only takes time, which A lot of people want to be able to race, look at the first mover advantage, but if you're developing something people don't care about, it doesn't matter how quickly you get it out there. You want to be able to make iterative change to this and talking to people and solving the problems for the few. So start with your value proposition for a customer segment that you think is a match for your solution. You need to understand that problem and have the empathy for that customer to know that this is a real problem in their life that you're working to solve. So develop the product with not everyone in mind. You can't work for everyone and solve everyone's problem. Help them understand that their feedback is going to be valued and that by giving you input on what you're developing, you are going to be able to create a better solution for them. So that is important. A lot of people look at how large of a market it is, how you can satisfy that biggest person, but start with one, build from there, get market feedback, and build what many of you may have heard as an MVP. So that is a minimum viable product. You can do this in many ways. As you are doing this, this could be as simple as a paper prototype. You just want somebody to see how they would interact with something. As you're going through and developing, it's not always about the features that is the value proposition. Features do not always equal value. They might be something that creates value, but when you talk about what you've created, you cannot just list features. That is not a value proposition. You need to talk about what the problem is and how you solve it, and ideally in a unique way. How do you overcome the status quo, and how do you help them better their lives? And that's where the pains and gains come in. Is this a gain creator? Does this help them improve their life? Is it a problem solver? Is it reducing a pain in their life that makes their life better as a result? So there is an important term that you'll hear a lot through this program called getting out of the building. This is something that Steve Blank is famous for, that you do not find the answers in the lab. You cannot keep doing what you're doing and think that you're going to advance what you're working towards with your customer. You can advance your research, you can make a lot of headway in many areas, but you cannot speak to your customer if you're not willing to get out of the building. Now, with what's important with this, as we're talking with customers, you are building empathy and learning from the people you are serving. You need to understand that customer and you need to understand what drives their decisions so that you can create better value for them. The problems that they are trying to solve may be unique solutions that you had not considered. There might be cheaper, easier ways to do things than what you had originally envisioned. Don't think about your solution has to have every bell and whistle before it goes to market. This is the importance of customer discovery, taking the time and speaking to people and knowing what problems you're solving and how big of a problem is it. Is it something that it would be nice to solve? Is it something that they have to solve? Is it something they've been working to solve on their own and there's nothing out there, so they've created their own solutions? So it's very important that understanding how big of a problem this is, and you might hear the term a hair on fire problem. That's something that Nakia is probably very familiar with the national program. Is this something that they are going crazy for because they cannot have a commercial solution? So they might be looking for something and the market is just not there. No one else is solving it. When you hear that from your customers, that's when you know you're on to something. And are customers willing to pay for what you're creating, what you're solving? As you're working across with your team, it's important to be able to bring everybody in the conversation. The rest of your team is going to hear things that you might not hear in this customer interview. So it's really valuable to go in open-minded and everyone listening to what's being said and even recording this so that you can listen back in the future. And there might be things that you did not immediately take in. So understanding the why of why this impacts the customer. So the why is your value proposition. So everybody that attended our first session, we heard a little bit about value proposition. We're going to have some time to be able to break into breakout groups and be able to share your value proposition as well. This is really important to be able to clearly define what you do and how you create a benefit for your customer. So is it valuable for your customer? And what do you do? Do you solve a problem? Do you create a gain for your customer? And understanding who that customer is. And if you are selling something, you cannot say my customer is the hospital. There are many people within that chain. It's not always the person that's going to be using the product. So understanding the different customer archetypes and knowing who you need to speak with, if it's the billing, if it's the user, if it's the decision maker. There's a lot of people that are involved in this, and it's important to do this customer discovery at every stage so that you know, as you're speaking to the people that are potentially using it, you know that the buyer would also be interested because the value that it creates saves time. What does it do? Does it allow them to see more patients? Does it reduce the errors that might be caused with the current systems? So it's important to look at everything that you are creating, and the value is more than just how it helps one person, but how it helps the system. So this can be everything from products and services that you offer to your customer. Everyone in here has unique ideas, and I'm really excited to be able to go through our value proposition breakout so that you can clearly define this. Everyone that's involved with our Skandalaris Center programs know that we do an idea bounce platform where you can easily share a 2-minute pitch about your idea. The value proposition is the perfect fit for this because you only have 2 minutes to clearly express what you are working on with clarity. That's very hard to do to off the top of your head, to be able to share, this is what I'm working on, this is who it's helping, and this is how it's helping. To have the passion and to know what you need to advance this. So being able to ask for help is a very valuable skill. So your solution is not a list of features, and you need to be able to have something that is so clearly defined. Your customer can be your promoter. They can share this for you, and they can tell your friends what value is created very simply, without a lot of words and a lot of lingo that they might hear on other things. So try and make it as simple as possible to be able to be able to promote it for you. So thinking about your value proposition with ease and clarity. And it starts here with our value proposition mapping. And as I shared before, in the left quadrant here, you're looking at the products and services. In the bottom right is the pain relievers, and the top right is going to be the gain creators. All of these can be solved, but it's important to identify one. What is the problem? So understanding the jobs that need to be done by your customer and what they're currently using. The problems that they're encountering are what they would like to do that could create a better outcome, more benefit for the user, a better patient experience. So it's really valuable to take a step back and ask many questions. And one important area is asking what they need, and if they had a magic wand, what could they create? And knowing what that could be is really valuable because it might take you a different direction. All of the entrepreneurs and innovators in the audience today understand the importance of pivots. We don't always get it right when we're sketching out in our lab books what it is that we're trying to create, because we don't have the customer's perception in mind of what obstacles they're encountering. So it's really valuable to take a step back, listen to your customer, and have enough customer interviews that you can put together a larger sample set and know that everyone there is trying to help you develop something that will make their life easier. So everyone is on your side. That's why you don't want to go in and share your solution. You want to pull the information from them so that you can create a better solution without them telling you you're doing a great job. We all want to hear what it is that we're doing well, and we can be very quick to share what our solution is. But this outline here is a simple ad lib. So understanding how to create your value proposition starts with understanding your customer. And you see here on the second line, understanding the customer segment and who it is. How can you clearly define what the customer needs and what their role is as a user for your potential product? So if you can define what your product or service is, who you're helping, the jobs to be done, and by decreasing the customer pain and increasing the customer gain, and how you do that. So we're going to do some breakout rooms here in a moment, but I want everybody to take a minute just to sketch down some thoughts here. So this is your value proposition outline. You see it's only a couple of blanks to fill in, but think of this as kind of the Mad Libs that we might be used to as kids when we try to fill things in and make funny jokes. This is an opportunity to share what we are doing and how we are helping others, but it takes the preparation to know who you're helping, what it is that they have a problem with, and what it is they need help with. So that's where your customer pains and gains come in. And your verbs can be, decreasing the amount of time spent working on something, increasing the amount of, free time for your potential users, or reducing the upload speed of something. Just know that this is meant to give you an outline, and be able to work through this with some breakout rooms will be really valuable for everyone there. We don't expect you to have a great value proposition that's going to go on the homepage of your website as soon as you finish this. It is an iterative process. As you're going through, we want you to be able to do more customer discovery. And we're going to hear from a couple of people that had done some customer discovery and the value that they gained through that experience today. So we have a couple of different types of fit here. And it's important to understand that product solution fit is the easiest thing to achieve first. And that just starts with understanding what it is that your customers need, the pains, gains, and jobs to be done. And you get that from interviewing. Next, we're going to be talking a bit about product market fit. And we can achieve that through interviewing, but it also means alignment with what you've created and how you are going about bringing this to the market. This is not something we expect for you to have at this stage. If you do, you are far ahead of everyone else, and we applaud you and we want to work with you to be able to advance that. But it's important to look at how you are going to get traction and bring something to the market, because that means that the market is ready for it. You found that fit. That's going to take a lot of interviewing and probably a lot of changes on the solution you originally envisioned. So it's important to know that you don't need to be there yet. Take your time getting there. The next is going to be the business model fit, which is going to happen after the iCore site program, which again is going to require much more discovery and understanding that your value proposition is able to fit a scalable business model. So today we're going to talk a bit of product market fit, and I'm going to just touch on this at a high level. Nikia is going to be talking about this a bit more in our next section after we've had some opportunities to do some breakouts, get to know each other a bit better, and hear from some other members in our group that have done some value proposition and some customer discovery and what they've learned through that process. Because they've done it doesn't mean that they are done. It means that they're just getting started. They've learned things that they didn't think that they would need to be able to go back and refine. So it's a very valuable exercise. So we want to make sure that we know as we're going through this, that the product market fit is the value proposition and the customer segment coming together, that you are creating value for those customers that you are serving. That's when you have that fit, and it all starts with understanding the customer the best you can. So again, finding product market fit is very difficult. We have the value proposition design books available. So we do have some opportunities to be able to get these to some of our interested audience members. And we want you to be able to refine this. We want you to be able to find that fit. And the Skandalaris Center is here to help you. We are very proud of being able to offer the Skandalaris iCore program, because this information is very valuable for advancing startups. To be able to have innovations is great, but to be able to commercialize them is another. So we want to be able to help you along that continuum. And this is maybe what some of you have experienced from our first session to now. So we've been looking for our customer segment. You've heard get out of the building, and we have an idea in mind. Our customer is a male that's 24 to 35. We think we understand who that is. That's our hypothesis. We design experiments to go about finding and testing if we are on the right track. Just because that's who we think we're serving doesn't mean that we know before conducting that customer discovery. As you're testing, you're developing and gaining insights. And that is, it doesn't show it here, but that is a continuous flow. The more insights you get, the more tests that you run, the more your hypothesis change, and the more you can test again. So we shared an Airtable link in our last session, and we will again today, that will have all of these slides available. We'll have a tracker that you can keep track of your customer interviewing, and we want you to be able to see those iterations as you go through. That customer you think you might be serving will be changing over time. So we want to be able to test that hypothesis and see why or why not of what we had originally determined. So the person that you might be looking for in the beginning might not be the person you're serving at the end, but that is the value. You do not need to worry about changing because everything you do is advancing you to the next step because you're collecting data. Just like any science experiment, you're starting with a hypothesis, you're experimenting, and you're coming up with a new solution. Product market fit is all about making connections. So we shared the business model canvas in our last session, but it's very important to take a step back and understand that you don't have to do the entire business model canvas to get started. We're looking at two very important boxes to get started here, which is our value proposition, which we'll be doing today, and our customer segments that we are serving. So this is where you're trying to find the fit with the jobs to be done and the services or products that are helping do that job for the customer, making their life easier or solving a problem that they are currently encountering. So the big takeaways here before we break into our groups is finding fit. So does your value proposition clearly explain what you do, who you help, and how you help them? So internalize that when you're developing your value proposition, understanding who it is you're helping and how you are creating value for them. And that can go for many things. With startups, if you're looking for a new career, you have to find how you are creating value for everyone that you serve. That can even be in your family of what are you doing to be able to make everyone's life easier, happier, reducing the pains and increasing the gains for a better experience. Has the customer discovery yielded new insights, and what benefits do you create for the customer? So finding out that problem is the best place to start. We all may have a solution in mind, and that's where we want to be able to take a step back, put our solution on the back burner, and go out and do customer discovery. As we do, we're going to build relationships with future potential customers. We do not want to show them what our idea is now. Take the time to be able to collect data and ask if you can go back and refine what you're doing and bring this to them in the future. If you have a great solution, they're going to be more interested if you bring this back to them in the future and have taken their considerations into mind when you're developing the solution for their problem. They will be more likely to adopt it and know that you didn't make up your mind before you even spoke with them. If you don't hear someone out and you just nod to what they're telling you and then immediately want to pull out your prototype, you are not going to make the headway that you might like. So understanding the features that are must-haves. Not every feature adds to the value for your customer. You can create tremendous features, but sometimes that MVP is going to be what you can do in a beta solution to be able to open opportunities and solve problems for your customer. They will be much more likely to add features and give you feedback on what is needed. But if you go down the road of developing too many features, you may distract from what the core value is that you're creating. And again, is this a nice to have, a must have, or a hair on fire problem? And does your product deliver value for your customer? And if so, how does it do that? So we have a little bit of an outline here called a petal diagram. This will be something that we'll be talking about for future sessions, but I did want to share this here just to be able to give everybody a bit of an understanding and looking at the market. What is it? Where do you fit into the bigger market so that so you can clearly define what it is that you do and how you do it differently than others. You don't want to say that we are just like this company, but you do want to explain how you can solve that problem that another company is currently solving, and what is the status quo that most people are using, but would clearly understand where things are lacking. So it's important to look at from a wider perspective. And I did want to share this here. We will cover this at a later point, but I wanted to go ahead and wrap that up for now. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and would like us to be able to go into breakout rooms and answer any questions before we do that you may have before we go into breakout rooms. This is going to be a safe place where everyone is sharing, and we want you to be able to develop a value proposition and share this with everyone in the room so that they can give you feedback and allow you to internalize that. They might not be your customer, but they do understand if you're getting too technical, if you're going too in depth. What you're sharing now is just a value. What do you create? Do you understand who your customer is? Do you understand what their problems are? Let's start there and work together. We are going to be breaking into a couple of breakout rooms here shortly. If anybody has any questions before we do that, please come off of mute and would love to hear any feedback that you have. Okay, it looks like everybody's understanding the principles pretty well. Nakia, is there anything that you would like to add before we go into our breakout rooms?
No. Very interesting to hear what everyone's report out is. And like you said earlier, there's a lot of things that I will kind of uncover and unpack and give you kind of a higher level from the customer's perspective, and just how all this kind of ties in, and how and why customer discovery is so important.
All right, so we do have one question before we go to breakouts. Jacob is asking about disruptors. Jacob, do you mind coming off of mute and sharing a bit more what you're thinking about disruptors? So challenging an existing market.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, if your product, for example, is challenging an existing market and doing it in such a way that, while more cost effective, is going to require retooling or reimagining of an existing market, and upsetting the norm, it seems like it's a difficult thing when you're talking to customers. Sorry.
Sure.
So understanding their needs, I get that, and I want to bring that in, but I'm pretty sure that I'm developing a disruptor to them. And unfortunately, I also don't want to think egotistically that it's the only solution, you know. How do you go about talking to somebody about such a thing? If they had a magic wand, I guess would be a good example.
Yeah, that's great. And I think taking a step back, and rather than thinking about your solution right away, think about what it is that you're trying to solve, what it is that the customer has the problem with. Because I think a lot of people will be reluctant to say, yes, we need disruption in here, because the biggest obstacle you're going to encounter is probably the status quo. We have always done it this way. Why would we change? Is it cheaper? Is it faster? Is it easier? And if so, how much? How much is it going to cost in training? How much is it going to cost in new adoption? So you have to overcome that status quo as a big portion of that. Nakia, would you like to add anything to that about disruption?
Yeah, I think also to add to that, you know, when you're thinking about creating a new product or a new technology, or you have a new product or a technology, and you're thinking about bringing it to market, once you've kind of done your customer discovery, you know, I kind of view innovation in four buckets. There's sustaining, there's integrative, there's new market, and there's disruptive. And I think it's, you know, uniquely finding where do you kind of fit in. So if you think that you're building a solution that's disruptive, but it's actually integrating into something that's already existing to kind of improve it, to make it better, then that's great. But if you're trying to establish a new market, I think you got to kind of have a good understanding on what is not working, or why would this new product or technology be beneficial to this particular ecosystem or particular industry that you're trying to bring this new product in. But customer discovery is all those things that will help you understand all of that. So sustaining, integrative, new market, or disruptive, you know, and where you need to understand uniquely where your tech fits in that equation, so that you can make sure that what you're building plays well, because you never know. You may need a partner, you may need the channel in order to grow or to scale. It might be part of your key resources. We don't know. But that's the wonderful thing about the laboratory notebook of the business model canvas.
That's a great point, Nakia. And knowing, you mentioned a very valuable aspect of the business model canvas is those channels, knowing who you need to partner with to bring a new disruptive technology to market. That people are less likely to adopt a disruptive technology unless it is following the similar channels that they're used to and that they're comfortable with. So this is great. I love the interaction from our audience. So if you have any questions, please, we want this engagement. We want you sharing your ideas. So we are going to go into breakout rooms unless there's any other questions before we go to breakouts. Great. I will be assigning rooms now, and we will have about 10 minutes to be able to go through this. And then we're going to do a short 5-minute break so that everybody can step away from the screen for a minute. And we will be rejoining back here for a Nakia session at 4 o'clock, 5 Eastern for everybody on the East Coast. So we're going to go ahead to our breakout rooms now. Kia has experience being a national I-Corps instructor, much different than the site program that we're doing here in IKEA. Before we kick off your slides, do you mind sharing a little bit about what the national program is and give everyone a little bit of insight in how this progresses through the NSF I-Corps process?
Yeah, so the regional program does a really good job in helping to prepare teams for the national program. I know that each regional site has its various differences between how many customer interviews that they really want the teams to really have done in order to be able to compete on the national, I don't want to use the word compete, to participate on the national level. And if nothing else, coming into the national program with a deep understanding of who the customer segment is and at least the value proposition, and having somewhat an understanding of what that process is and what that process looks like. The national program, it is, the only thing I can say is it's intense. That 100 interview is absolutely brutal. And being able to get those interviews, and NSF is extremely strict about you being able to get those 100 interviews, because from day one when we start to the day that we end, it is nothing but just who did you talk to, what did you learn, and the pace and the intensity just picks up as the weeks go. So we start out really broad, then we ask you to really start to focus about 3 weeks in to really start to make sure that there's some really good learnings that will happen for the rest of the week, so that we can get to this culmination of, hey, we really found a real hair on fire problem, or you know what, we didn't find absolutely nothing, and no one could care less about what we were actually building or what we actually created. So the national program, obviously, you have to have sponsored IP in a university sponsored IP. So your research must be university research based in order for you to move forward. So it's typically you have someone that, whether it's your work in the lab or whether it's a PI you're working with, we have the TL, EL, and the IM, the technical lead, the entrepreneurial lead, and the mentor is what makes up the demographic of the team, of a national team when you're going through the national program. And typically it is the EL that usually leads the team. Is kind of like the CEO of the team, helping the team navigate, because we want to get them that experience. And the whole purpose of it is evidence-based entrepreneurship. Let's develop a hypothesis. Let's go out and talk to people, and let's test it to see whether or not there is in fact something there. And if there is something there, then what is the next steps for us once the program ends? Everyone has different outcomes, and we celebrate all, whether you found a customer, don't find a customer, whether you know who your business model is or don't know what your business model is, we celebrate it all. We want to make sure that there is actual learnings that take place. And I cannot assure you how many entrepreneurs or students or faculty have gone through the program that have said, hey, my research has gotten better, or now I have a better understanding of how the thing I'm working on in the lab will translate into the marketplace and the commercial opportunities for it. And so the national program does a really good job in doing that. And so you always have 6 instructors, you'll have 3 core instructors, and you'll have 3 adjunct instructors. And I actually just finished a national cohort in LA, which was sponsored by the USC, UCLA, Arizona, Caltech, that node. There was 3 core instructors there, and I was actually the adjunct for that national cohort. And then you have NSF typically kicks off with us and ends with us. And so that's the national program, and it's short. And I can tell you this, radical candor is something that we practice quite often. And sometimes the instructors are viewed as being mean, rude, and it's none of that. Our intent is to make sure that the learnings are very focused and that you know exactly what you're doing through the program. But we are there to support and serve you. And I guarantee you this, they love us in the end, midway through it, they hate us. And at the end, they love us again. That's the best way that I can express that bipolar relationship.
And from going through the national program myself, I can agree with that. When you're in the trough of despair and you're hearing a lot of no's to your customer discovery, and you have to then report that back to your teaching team and everyone else that is looking for you for insights,
Right.
The one thing you need to do is at least do those customer discovery interviews. Even if it's not yielding the results you want, you're still making progress because you're going out, you're talking to people, and at the end, you decide if it's a go or no go decision, and know that you're investing your time. That's the most valuable resource you have. It's a fantastic learning experience that can save you time and money down the road. If you continue pursuing something that doesn't have commercial opportunities, you're going down a dead end path and you're going to reach it at some point. This will help expedite that process and get you onto something that you're excited about and has greater potential. So a fantastic program, highly recommend it. I'm always here in the Skandalaris Center to be able to help anybody that's interested in the I-Corps program. We want to see more WashU teams and more St. Louis community teams coming through and representing the Midwest at these hub and national programs. So please let us know what we can do. I wanted to be able to just get your input on that, Nakia, and let people know it is very intense, but very worthwhile to be able to participate. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So I'll turn it over to you to share a bit more. And Nakia is going to go more in depth on the product market fit and finding the different fits to be able to expand upon your journey. So thank you, Nakia.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today. And I can tell you this, I've been around the I-Corps program now for about 5 years now. And there's tons of other programs out there that helps entrepreneurs to really understand the landscape, but I haven't really found a program that really works with researchers and faculty in the way that NSF does through the I-Corps program. So I'm forever an I-Corps champion as it relates to that. And like I said, I enjoy the mentoring side and the instructor side. So I have both perspectives as it relates to going through the program. But today I want to kind of, some of the things that you will hear through the presentation will be somewhat similar to what Mike has already said. But I want to talk to you about the customer segments, value proposition, and the buyer's journey. And so I kind of want to weave all of this together. So and kind of put you in the context of, you're doing customer discovery, and how do you take all of this data and this information, and how do you actually pull it together? And how does it actually make sense? Because in the onset, when in the early beginning part of it, you think like, why am I doing all this? And does it even really make sense? And will anybody understand this? But I can tell you this, everything starts and falls on the customer segment and the value, or the customer and the value that you're delivering to that customer. Nothing else will work unless you uniquely understand that. And so I just want to spend a little time and just kind of talking through this. And, just housekeeping for me, if you have, you're not on mute. If you have questions, save it for the end, because I just want to make sure that I can get through the presentation. There is a lot of slides, but the way that I get through it, we'll get through it in enough time to where we can have some really good engagement and really want to hear from your perspective, because I would like to provoke and interrogate you all in the same sentence through this presentation. And so with that, customers, we all automatically think that if we build something unique and something that we believe has value, that everybody wants it. But in my experience as being an entrepreneur and working with entrepreneurs is that, the question is always why people buy. And they don't buy because they understand what you do. They buy because you understand them. You understand what uniquely they need. You understand the pain they have, the problem that they're trying to solve. And the more you uniquely understand the customer, the easier it will be to build out your business model. I'm not going to say and assure that you'll actually be a success at it, but one thing that I will say is that the more you understand the customer, the easier it is to make sure that you're delivering the right value to the right people. So it's never about your technology, as you'll hear that through the regional and the national I-Corps program. It's about what that customer wants and what that customer needs, and how are you delivering that to them. Most startups stop here. They find problem solution fit. And Mike did an excellent job of explaining what problem solution fit is. It's basically you found a problem and you can uniquely address it or uniquely solve it. But the reality of it is it just doesn't stop there, because he mentioned earlier about, I can't tell you how many startups that fall in that feature trap. and they fall down that hole and they're just forever down that hole and they never get out of it, never getting to a place of business product market fit, or not even getting to a place of business model fit. Understanding that when you start out at problem solution fit, it is uniquely that, hey, I found a customer and I have some value, and in that there is somewhat of a problem solution fit, meaning that I have at least a lowest level of something that I know can solve a problem, but is it really solving that real true hair on fire problem for that customer? And you'll see the difference between problem solution fit to business model fit as I begin to unpack the rest of the presentation, to help you to understand how so important it is for you to understand the customer and the value that you're delivering for that individual customer, so that you can in turn translate all what you've learned in the marketplace into an actual functional business for you. So once you get to problem solution fit, the ultimate place is product market fit. And I can tell you this, product market fit is an extremely hard thing. And a lot of customers think that, well, I've got a problem and I can somewhat low level solve it. And they think that that's product market fit. And I assure you that's not product market fit. Having a unique understanding of the channels and the key resources and how well you play and what that relationship looks like will help you to understand and achieve that ultimate, what is called product market fit. But the ultimate goal here is to make sure that we're getting to that place of business model fit, which takes time. And I can assure you this, there is no amount of money that you will have, or no amount of money that you will spend that can thrust you into a place of product market fit or business model fit unless you uniquely understand who the customer is. The ultimate goal is can I identify a problem that enough people care about with an intensity large enough to motivate them to action? And I'll read that again. Can you identify a problem that enough people care about with an intensity large enough to motivate people for action? That's the ultimate thing here. It's getting people to finding that cluster of people and a problem that enough people care about. Now that's problem solution fit. So let's focus a little bit on product market fit. Product market fit is, can you design a product or a process that delivers value in a way that your customers want to consume it? And the only way that you can find out what value that you're actually delivering to your actual customer is to go out and do customer interviews, is to go talk to customers, to understand what is it that they need, and to differentiate between the feature and differentiate to a problem that you're trying to solve. You hear a lot in the regional program and the national program where we talk about what is product market fit, or what is that hair on fire problem, or what is that job to be done by that customer. The more you understand the job that needs to be done by that customer, it's separating between customer type, and understanding the difference between, is this the person who's having the problem, or is this the person that influences the problem, or is this the person that understands the problem? And I'm kind of setting you up for something here, because I want you to understand how uniquely you need to understand the job to be done of the individual customer. And when you understand all of those things, we get to a place called business model fit. Now, the canvas is blank. And yet we understand that we start out with understanding the customer and the value. But uniquely having a good understanding of all of this will help you to tie all of the resources together to make sure that you have appropriate business model fit. Because ultimately, we want to get to a place that, can you build a repeatable business selling your product or service to your customer? I want to repeat it again. Can you build a sustainable, repeatable business selling product to or process to your customer? Now, in problem solution fit, you can find some real low level solution that can solve someone's immediate problem, but that immediate problem, like I love a bag of Twizzlers, and in my opinion, that might be an immediate need, and someone has created a new flavor of Twizzlers, and that might be something that I view as a problem, and someone can create it and it can solve an immediate or selfish need that I love Twizzlers at that moment. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they solve the ultimate problem. The ultimate problem for me might be, I need a sustainable supply of Twizzlers in that particular color, ready when I want to eat them. Now that's a different, much larger thing. So now I got to kind of dive into who makes it, the manufacturing of it, the coloring of it, the shipping, the distribution of it to me. So I need to understand all of those specific things. So can you build a sustainable, repeatable business selling your product or process to your customers? When we think of a go-to-market strategy, and once you've kind of understand what the business model your business model fit and uniquely understanding who the customer is. You know, your go-to-market strategy is the mechanism that you deliver unique value to the target customer segment. It is an important component on how the firm will make it happen. And so you'll hear a lot of us really focusing on the value proposition, and you guys just came out of an exercise. And value proposition is usually, like I said, not a feature. It is something unique to an individual's jobs. And I always say when you're interviewing people and you're doing customer discovery, and the more you understand that individual's job and you ask them the right questions to help them to unpack what are some of the challenges or the problems that they're having in that job. And if you're keen enough to understand the insights that they're giving you, sometimes those insights are uniquely tied to that customer's job, or that value is tied to that customer's job. But more importantly, you need to also understand that once you're tying all this together, the relationship, the interaction between you, the customer segment, and your buyer, and the whole customer segment in order to deliver the value is important. All of these things have to be clicking on all cylinders from a go-to-market strategy standpoint before you really start launching. And that's why it's so hard for people to, you know, kind of suspend their bias and say, hey, well, I'm an expert in a particular area. I built this really cool thing and I know everybody's going to want it. Why? Because you think it's cool. It's something you built. No, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with your thinking, but in context of how you really find business model alignment, it's important to understand where you fit in the ecosystem, and are you delivering value to that individual or to the ecosystem as a whole? Are you disrupting it? Or are you going to be a hindrance or a bottleneck? So understanding placement and where you sit into the ecosystem is just as important as the value that you actually deliver, because each individual or customer segment or industry has their own set of adoption criteria. And maybe what you've delivered might not necessarily meet or fit that, but you never know that until you actually do customer discovery. So that brings me to understanding where are the people, having a unique understanding of the value chain. And this is an example of a material supplier for a clothing line. And if you notice at the bottom, you have a supply chain, a whole ecosystem from the raw materials all the way to the end user and the consumer. But the thing that I want you to focus on is the fact that you have the raw materials, the spinner, the weave and denim mill, the garment maker, the apparel brand, the distributor, the retailer, and the consumer. But if you look below, all of them have a very different business model. They have a business model canvas. And the reason the business model canvas is there is because you need to understand what value are you delivering in every step in the chain. You got to think of your company and then the ultimate user's value and the value proposition that you're delivering. So the product or solution in my fit does it sit in with the raw materials, the supplier? Does it sit in the garment maker? Who are you delivering value to? So you can't just say, hey, I got a solution that overall is going to impact the material supplier of the clothing line. That's a little bit broad, but can we kind of narrow that down a little bit and be a little bit more specific? Who in the supply chain or value chain, or where are you delivering value in the entire ecosystem from end to end? And once you understand that, it's not just uniquely saying, hey, I deliver value to the spinner. Now, keep in mind, to the bottom, the spinner still has a business model that they deliver value to the raw material supplier and the weave maker. So it's not just so much that you're answering the problem for the spinner, but you're making sure that you deliver value across the entire chain as well, especially when you're talking about someone trying to adopt a new technology or solution. So are you improving something, displacing something, improving the overall value chain, or you are a hindrance or a bottleneck in it? It's important. So let's look at you and where you sit into that. So you've got company 1, 2, and 3. So you sit where the spinner sits. And so understanding that, as I stated earlier, you know, who are the customers and who do you need to talk to on both sides to understand the entire ecosystem? We love doing the ecosystem map and having the entrepreneurs and the students and faculty during the I-Corps program, whether it's regional and national. And there's a portion of our lectures where we talk about the ecosystem. Where do you fit into it? How do you deliver value to it? Who should you talk to? What should you specifically be asking? You know, we tell you things like, don't ask yes or no questions, don't ask leading the witness questions, but we want you to uniquely understand what is it that you really value, that you're really delivering? And do you understand the customer enough to know that they have to deliver value to other people as well? And do you help them deliver that in a unique way? So when you zero it back out, now that we understand who you're serving and who are the key companies in your value chain, now if you look at companies 1 and 3, if you notice something else, as it's zoomed out, companies 1, 2, and 3 also have additional customers that they intersect and interact with. And I know it's a lot to think about. And you're like, man, why in the world would I want to go through all of that? Well, if you're building a business, it's important to understand the entire ecosystem and where you uniquely sit. And it all starts off with this wonderful thing called the business model canvas, and understanding the customer segment, the value you deliver, and understanding the relationship that you have with your customer and the relationship that they have with their vendors as well. You have to play really, really well in the actual ecosystem. So who is responsible for innovation? Who makes the decision? So you've got the saboteur, the influencer, the recommender, the decision maker. You have all of these people. They're called customer types. So your customer segment may be the person who's in charge of apparel and manufacturing, but what is his customer type? Is he the decision maker in this equation? Who makes the decision for the responsibility to bring in new innovation? Who makes that decision? So it's not just going out for the sake of talking to people. When we see a lot of teams get stuck in this space because they're like, well, I talked to 20 people, but did you talk to 20 of the right people is the right question. And you want to make sure that you're talking to people that makes the decision. Because when you understand who makes the decision in this equation, then you understand who is going to actually pay you. The decision maker and the economic buyer and the end user are very different people. I always like to use the example of healthcare. Healthcare is the perfect example of, well, when someone creates a solution, the first thing that they think about is the patient, the end user. They're often not the person who's making the decision. They're the end user. They're not the person that's actually paying you. It's the insurance. So separating and making sure that you understand who is the payer versus the end user and who is the influencer, and making sure that you understand the difference between that customer segment of the manufacturer apparel maker and that person's customer type, which may be the decision maker or the economic buyer, will help you to understand who you should be talking to from an interview standpoint. And so that brings us ultimately to product market fit. And we're back at this thing called the canvas. And I assure you this, if you continue in ICOR, whether it be regionally or nationally, and you continue to build your business, you're going to be ad nauseum with this thing called the business model canvas. And you're going to quite get sick of it in some instance, like, God, I'm tired of this thing. And it's so simplistic in its nature, but I guarantee you this, there's some very successful businesses that have been built and launched using all of these very simple principles and understanding who's the customer and the problem and the value that you're delivering to the individual customer. So now let me jump into how do we tie the customer segment, the value proposition, into what is called the buyer's journey. So we start off with this really cute, neat, ideal scenario of who we think the customers are, as goals, the problems, the tasks, the barriers, the constraints of the customer. We're going to take a look at, what is the winning themes, where products, capabilities, and customer segments and needs intersect. And then looking at the pillars of that, the product capabilities or promise, the difference to your customers in the marketplace or for a specific persona. Is this one isolated incident to this one customer, the problem that you solve? Is this a cluster of individuals? And then understanding the company's high level promise to its target audience. Getting that messaging right is important. And ultimately having the good mission and the value and a good tagline for your company once you decide to really build it. Getting product market fit right and getting pricing right and understanding the buyer's journey all starts with understanding the customer and how do you weave through that process. And so we're back at that business model canvas again, understanding the customer and understanding the problem. So some of these have already went over, so I'll won't spend as much time on it, but it's important that you understand this wonderful thing called the value proposition canvas, the customer segments and the value proposition. The jobs to be done, the pains, the gains, the gain creators, and the products or services. Uniquely understanding when a customer is viewing into what they believe is the value that they will gain from your specific solution, you have to find alignment. So if you've created something, what value, what is the gain creator for that individual's job? So does that mean that if they had this particular tool or resource that the gain for them is that they can have 20% more productivity on a job than versus 20% less? Is the pain here for them that it's so overwhelming to the point that it costs them more money and more time to get their job done? And you have a solution that reduces that pain. So that's how you got to kind of look at that without kind of going over that, because Mike did a wonderful job in explaining that. So the customer segment and understanding the jobs and the role, the customer's job can be different: functional, social, emotional, or supporting. And the reason I'm focusing on that, because oftentimes a customer's job or job to be done or a pain is a nuisance for them. You know, they have something that's related to their job that is such a humongous pain that they would do absolutely anything to absolutely solve that. So understanding that, and once we get into kind of like the buyer persona and really understand that, then you'll kind of it'll make a little bit more sense. So understanding the role of the customer, understanding the role of the buyer, you know, understanding, you know, what is it that that buyer is trying to get done, the job that they have. You know, what is it that in this role, your customer performs a job related to buying, such as a company offering or deciding a product to buy or performing in a purchase or taking delivery or product or a service? You know, so what is the creator or what is the transfer? What is the transaction that happens here? How do you make this situation better for this individual customer? And what is the value that you deliver to that individual? So let's look at the gains here for a minute. So the gains are required, expected, desired, or expected or unexpected. You know, what is it that, you know, that within their job, what is it in that interview? They said, man, if I had this, I could do this. If I didn't have this in my way, I could be able to do this. The more you understand and ask questions, and not so much yes or no questions. And the reason why we tell you not to talk about your technology or your solution is because sometimes it can kind of taint the interview. And we don't want you out there just kind of selling to them. We want you out there to really understand, is there really a problem here? You know, and what is it that they view from their perspective is a true real gain for them? So you need to really spend time understanding that. So having some really good trigger questions to kind of unpack some of those things when you go into an interview. You know, don't just walk into an interview blind with no questions and I'm just going to wing it and I'm just going to just ask a bunch of questions and make this assumption that because I'm asking these questions, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. No, you have to go into that interview prepared. What is the hypothesis? What is it that you're specifically trying to test? What is it you specifically want to learn? What do you do with that insight, and how does it impact overall your campus? So when it says which savings would make your customer happy? Which savings in terms of time, money, or effort would they value? You know, so crafting a good questions. What do your customers expect, and what would go beyond their expectations? What qualified levels do they expect, and what could you offer for more or less? You know, and not directly in that sense, but just kind of figure out what questions and how do you ask those questions in such a way that you really get to some of the answers that you're specifically looking for. And it's just as more trigger questions around what positive social consequences do your customers desire? You know, what makes them look good or increase their power or their status? Some people want to solve a problem because they have intentions of getting a new promotion, you know, or they just, you know, they're looking to be new, creative, and innovative in their job. You know, what would make your customer's job or life easier? Could it be the flatter of learning curve or more services or lower cost of ownership? Or, you know, I don't know. These are just trigger questions. You don't have to use these questions exactly, but just in general, when you ask a trigger question, it usually is going to domino into something else, and which is really going to get to the heart of the pain or the challenge of the customer. And so, what do customers dream about? Like, what is their ideal thing? How do your customers measure success and failure? Now, when you hear things like a customer saying, I want something more, better, cheaper, or faster, don't just let them say off the hook when they say that. Because when I hear more, better, or cheaper, faster, my brain defaults to a metric. And so that metric means, so quantify, what do you mean by better? So does better mean that I can do this 10% better or faster or 10% more efficient? Because that is tied to some type of performance or some type of outcome. So just make sure that when you hear those types of questions, don't just say, let them off the hook when they say, I want something better. No, what do you mean by I want something better? So understanding the pains of the customer is understanding their undesired cost or situation, negative emotions, they're functional, they're emotional, accelerate. All of these things help you to understand the customer segment when you're going into these particular interviews. And more trigger questions, and you will hear this ad nauseum at the national level. Who are you talking to? What did you ask them? What did you learn? Why did they say this? Why did they say this? And when we're in that LPC and when we're looking through your customer interviews and we're looking for what you've learned and you said we validated this, the first thing I'm going to start doing is start asking you, well, what questions you asked me? Give me some data points to verify what you just said is in fact the truth there. So questions are always going to be a good thing. You know, what are your customers' main difficulties and challenges? You know, just going in and saying, tell me about your job is not going to really yield anything. You really want to understand what the customer's challenges and problems and difficulties are. You know, we hear this all the time. We love this one. What's keeping your customer awake at night? You know, we all have jobs or have worked at a job before, and we realize that there are certain things that keep us up at night. Like I had my boss come to me and say, Nakia, we've got a grant that's due in 29 days, and we want to make sure that you can get it written in 29 days. And my response is like, are you kidding me? But that's part of my responsibility, and that's part of my job. Is it a little frustrating that I have to go through that? And is it a short turnaround time? And this grant's really important. But that's in the day, that's what I signed up for. That's what Georgia Tech hired me for. That's part of my role and responsibility and my part of doing my research and working with tech and the department that I work in. But also to understand what are the barriers that's keeping your customer from adopting your solution. All these things are important. Remember, we're talking about understanding the customer segment, the value proposition, and the adoption, and then the buyer's journey. And as we begin to dig a little deeper, you'll understand why I'm going through all this and why asking all these questions are so important. So now let's value map this thing. What can you uniquely offer to the customer to help get the job done? You know, and this is the opportunity where you take all of this information from your customer discovery and you can kind of look at it and say, now that I have a good understanding of what the customer needs and what the customer wants, now I can begin to map out how I'm going to deliver value to the customer. How products and services and pains, what they care about, you know? It's not just here's I'm solving this problem and pain, but how are you delivering that value to that customer? Does your product, like I said, in terms of time, effort, does it make your customer feel better? Fix underperforming solutions? You need to test your hypothesis and not only test the customer segment, but you need to test the value that you're delivering to your customer as well. So we actually encourage during the customer discovery process. So now let's find a couple of stakeholders and now let's start to test this value prop here and just to really see if this is the true value, because now we've identified a segment that says, hey, this is what we believe is valuable to us in doing our job. But you got to go actually test that thing. And yes, more questions help you do that. Put an end to the difficulties and challenges your customer encounters. You know, wipe out negative consequences your customers encounter in fear. Eliminate risk your customer's fear. You know, there's all these negative emotions, and we never think about it in context of, you know, it being something social or emotional for the customer, the end user, or the economic buyer. But it is, you know, because it's tied to their job and tied to their performance. So, you know, limit or eradicate common mistakes customers make, you know, understanding, you know, the value it's delivering. Does it get rid of barriers that are keeping your customer from adopting your solution? You know, and this is testing the value prop here and making sure that the value that you're delivering, once you've collected all the data from your customer interviews, is so important. So increase or maximize outcomes and benefits that customers expect and desire or would be. You know, you're delivering and mapping that back. More questions to kind of validate that, you know, outperform current solution and delight in your customers. So when you say that, it's like, hey, I've validated that. I've tested that. You know, I think one of the hardest things is, you know, I'm a metrics guy, I'm a research guy. You know, we can make all kinds of assumptions as to what we believe the outcome would be of something, but until you actually really, you know, measure that and test that and test it and test it and test it again, till it gets to a place that we, without a shadow of a doubt, know that this is the right solution and we are solving this customer's problem as a whole. Remember, we're trying to build something that's repeatable, scalable, something that will launch on a large scale. So more questions, keep the positive consequences, you know, help make adoption easier. You know, your value proposition helps to make adoption easier. This is, I'm not going to go through this exercise because you guys already kind of went through some, but you know, how your company's solution fills the buyer's persona's needs in a way that differentiates it from your competitors. So you can't just say, okay, here's the value. You got to make sure that it is a clear separation and distinction between the value that you're bringing and what the value of their competitor is bringing. Because remember, your customer has a business model as well too. They have to deliver value to someone else. So you want to make sure that that value that you're delivering to them is unique and that they're able to deliver value to their customers as well. So I'm going to skip the exercise because you guys have already come out of an exercise, but it is something to think about from the context of, you know, you have a company that's using your customer segment, and I'll read the example to the right, and what benefit they actually get from you. So using Slack to help remote members of busy enterprise marketing teams send files and collaborate more easily and effectively, allowing them to meet the company's growing needs without adding more features or team members to the team. So that's kind of, that's how you gotta kind of look at it. It's like, it's got to be so laser hyper focused, like it is a very specific problem. And that's not to say that your solution won't solve other problems, or it's not to say that your solution won't engage with other opportunities, but it's to this specific segment or company or solution or person, you know, what is it the value that you're actually delivering to that individual? So this is something that I would stop and think about here for a second. And now we're starting to get into like what the buyer's journey actually looks like. And once you've kind of gone through the customer discovery process and you've collected all that data, and now you have a good understanding of who the customer is, and you start to think about, how am I selling to this individual? You know, what is the target market or the buyer persona of this individual? You know, your solution, what is the category or framework of reference for that? You know, the rational or emotional reason as to why they will buy you. You know, or because your solution is unlike, you know, any other solution, or, you know, be descriptive in traits of your competitor. And your solution and reason why someone would do this, and it will be better for them. You know, so when you think about it in that context, it's like, where is the overall value? And I can tell you this, it's really hard. You know, sales is hard. It's really hard because if you don't understand the customer, get the pricing right, and you don't understand the channels and the adoption criteria of what a customer goes through to adopt the new technology or a new solution. And that goes back to what I was saying with the example of the garment value chain. Where are you delivering value? Because it's when you start to build and develop out a sales team, they're going to need to understand, you know, who's the target market and that buyer persona, because that helps them to fill out what that selling process looks like. How do they sell to this individual customer? So when you think of your positioning statement, it's like, you know, back to the same thing. It's like, what are you selling to the individual? Like, how are you delivering value to that person so they can make sure that they want to adopt? So we all heard the word personas or customer archetypes. You know, they can be, you know, fictional characters, represent key target audience, incorporates goals and needs and interests. You know, when you understand the persona of the individual, you know, it's like, for me, like, I am an absolute, you know, I love Twizzlers. You guys figured that out earlier. But I also love shoes. And one of my favorite brands is Colon. I love their shoes because for me, it is a hybrid between a sneaker and a very comfortable dress shoe, all in the same shoe. And so for me, you know, depending on what work environment I'm in, and I love the fact that I work at a university, but also it has a strong tech feel. So I get a chance to be cool. It, you know, it provides comfort, all of these things, which are attributes or things that I care about. So, and the fact that Kohan knows that based off of my buying and shopping habits and their occasional surveys that they ask, they're able to collect a profile, an archetype, a persona of me. And so when they create new products, they have somewhat of an idea of what I might like. And so that's just kind of a snapshot of what I mean by a persona. And here's more of a zeroed out kind of understanding of what a buyer persona is, simple. And I'll give you a couple of more other examples as well too. She's 28, married, 1 kid, full-time mom, just tells a little bit about her motivations, her goals, her frustration, some of her social values. She's active online. And some people are like, why do I need to know all this? It's important. And some of this information you can kind of extract without, actually talking to the person by just, I don't want to say trolling them on social media, but there are ways to kind of, get to this information like Google Analytics, and there's things like Mixed Panel where you can kind of program all of these data, these KPIs, these information that you want to extract from these different profiles and buyer behaviors that can kind of give you an understanding of who the customer is. And here's kind of a zeroed out template of what a buyer's persona actually looks like. And some of the things I've already mentioned, frustrations, online activities. And these are things that you can occasionally ask and maybe mix into a customer interview. And it kind of lightens the mood and just get them to talk a little bit more, because it kind of gives you into the pathology of how they think, how they make a decision. Will this be someone that I can kind of come back and talk to? Will they be a champion for me if I'm selling into the organization? Will they refer or recommend? So you can use personas in multiple different ways. So some of the buyer persona questions that you can ask is tell me about your role at your company. Who handles, process you're improving at your home office, or, what does a typical day at your home and office look like? Understanding the who and kind of really understanding that individual, and asking these specific questions before you get into maybe some of those deeper technical questions that you may be specifically asking that individual. At what do you and your peers do for professional development and social attractive? So you have a solution that's enhancing the overall performance and morale. And you don't have to use these exact specific questions, but it's just to kind of give you a framework of what questions and how you ask the right questions, because you're trying to get at who is the persona, who is this person, who was the profile of this individual that you're trying to specifically sell to. And I can guarantee you this, and I always like to use this question, and I guarantee you, and if any of you have ever seen a commercial such as this, I would love to know. But you've never seen a Lamborghini commercial, you've never seen a Ferrari commercial, you've never seen a Bentley commercial, and you've never seen a Bugatti commercial. Why? Because they uniquely understand who their customer segment is. They know everywhere that customer will shop, buy, who they talk to, where they congregate. They know that down to a T. So they don't need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars advertising a Bugatti on your local television show, because they know there's a unique audience, and that audience knows exactly where to buy them, and they understand the persona of that individual. So you have to have some problem validation questions, to kind of validate whether or not you understand that. So what product do you wish you had that doesn't exist yet? And this kind of gets you in the frame of mind of kind of probing at, I understand you have a problem, and I understand there's a problem that you're trying to solve and something that is impeding your job. So what is that ideal product for you? And, tell me about what that experience in having that new product would look like. And then begin to tell me about how would you adopt or buy that new solution. And so now you're kind of getting into the validation aspect of those questions. And this all is leading up to building out that persona so that you can understand this is the individual that I'm going to eventually end up selling to. So it's important to validate those questions. How important is the value you're delivering to the person? Do you find it hard to process or a problem, or tell me about the last time your process improving, or listen to complaints and getting more into, what's happening from them not having the ideal solution, and getting them to talk about their feelings and their emotion about it, and get them to tell you a good story, or get them to engage you in their experience, because that's really going to help you to understand who you're selling to and why. So now we got to begin to test their willingness to pay or to try. and more questions. And I guarantee you this is the more you spend in I-Core, whether it's regional and national, and if you do customer discovery, one of the things that you're going to have to learn is to ask good questions. And when you think about it from a researcher standpoint, any good investigator or any good researcher knows the right questions to ask. And it's no different in the sales process and having a good understanding of your buyer and having a good understanding of the buyer personas. What would your ideal solution to this problem look like? Get them to tell you about that. What is the hardest part about the process you're trying to improve? What do you like or dislike with competing or current solutions that are on the market? Get them to talk about comparison, because in that comparison, they'll start to unpack price, cost, adoption. If there's a conflict, if the cost to adopt you is greater than the problem that they have, they're not going to adopt. So get them to understand and what that adoption criteria looks like, because that will be very important for you going forward. So once you kind of understand from an interview standpoint, you need to understand this, who are you empathizing with? What do they need to do? What do they see? What do they say? What do they do? And what do they hear? And what do they think and feel about the pain and gain? So in an interview, you're going to ask questions that's going to unpack all of this, because you want to understand from that end user's perspective, all of these things. What do they see? What do they hear? What do they say? What's going on in their industry? Who's trying to solve it? How are they trying to solve it? This is what I've tried to do and solve it. Once you hear that, you're going to collect all of this data, and you're going to hear all of this different thing, and you're going to have to take it and you're going to have to distill it and find where is the value in that. Because all this information, and these are all the things that you're going to hear and get fired back out to you from a customer during a customer interview. Then you go back into it again, and you start to cycle all over, and you go talk to people, and you're going to keep revalidating this to make sure this is what they say. Then you're going to settle on a customer segment, and then you're going to get back to Anna again, and then you're going to take all the things that you've heard during a customer interview, and these are some of the things that you're going to hear her say about the questions that you specifically ask around gains and pains, and what she's thinking and feeling. Well, don't my friends make time for me? Isn't that difficult to have a quality friendship? Or, she's going to say things like, well, what wakes up and makes breakfast for family? She's going to throw out all these different things around the particular persona. But the important thing is to kind of hear what she's saying, and here's what's going on in her world, because so you can build out the best persona and the best case for her. And in some cases, you'll have multiple buyer personas, because each have different customer segments, and that's okay. Not to say that we're trying to lock you into one individual customer or one individual customer segment, because you'll have multiple buyers. So now that we're back at this thing called the business model canvas, now that you understand who the customer is and the value that you're delivering to that customer, because they've given you clues and insights to things that they value, and that may be cost reduction, risk reduction, or customization or performance. All these things will vary from customer to customer, but the better you understand that will help you to be able to understand what that process looks like, and then begin to understand, how do you develop, what does that relationship look like? Is it self-service? Is it transactional? Is it, an automated service? How are you delivering your content or service to this individual? How are you selling to them? All of that will help you understand that. What are the specific customer touch points? How does a customer find out? In this case, we're talking about a channel. How do you get your product to your customer, and what channel in which you do that and get that product to the customer? You take all of these use cases and understanding that once you've collected all this data, and I won't spend too much time on this, then now that's where you begin the nurturing of the process of all the information that you've collected in your product development roadmap, and your communication, and how you reach your customer, and nurturing the process. And you're going to test all these use cases. And there's a thing called testing pricing. Testing pricing elasticity. I always get that word kind of tongue-tied there for a second there. But testing whether or not that product has any value or not, if it's priced right. You're going to have a test run to make sure that does bring value, or does fit in, or is unique there. And then what are the benefits? The consistent and specific understanding of the customer segments. The true north for the product or dev and product features, put a human face into the abstract data, to understand, not only what that customer needs, but understand what is the benefit to the whole ecosystem as a whole and who you're selling to and why. And this is just another zeroed out persona of an individual that, you can kind of, like I said, you can formulate your own persona, so I won't spend any much time on that. But I do want to spend a little time on this one because this one is a little bit unique and a little bit different. So this is a B2B tech guy. He's a technical decision maker and he's a transformative leader. He has, he's a key attributes. He's between 45 and 55. He's educated. He's a leader. He's savvy. He's frugal. He's skeptical. He's a vendor claims. His reputation is a visionary, decisive, well-regarded within the industry. And these are insights that help you to understand who you're selling to and why. And this is data and information that you can extract from his friends or other people that you're interviewing to kind of get you to tell them a little bit about that individual. But the job focus, if you notice here, is to create enterprise-wide change, shifting perception of technology from utilization to strategic. His pain points is identifying most promising technology, getting company-wide buy-in for new softwares and initiatives, finding ways to make measurable impact. And all of this data is what helps you to build out a good understanding of a persona. And it'll start to make, because as we're getting close towards the end, we'll kind of see when I show you what the buyer's journey looks like and how all these cues and customer discovery and all this decision making goes into one specific area. So the buyer's journey's framework looks like this. You've got the discovery, consideration, the decision, and the renew. If you notice through the discovery aspect that's the awareness, the recognizing the problem, the exploring the possible solutions, the awareness, to advocate the problem. This is where you're refining the problem, understanding the value that you're delivering to the customer. But at that particular stage you're not quite ready to kind of onboard them. Because now you have to kind of understand from the consideration to commit to change, to commit to the solution. Now, after the evaluation, now you've educated, now you've got to engage them. What is the points of differentiation between you and someone else? And this is the stage where you kind of might engage in a bit of a trial, a bit of a pilot. And that's where you may test the pricing and make sure that you thoroughly understand the end user or the customer segment and understand that individual's persona. Now that once you've kind of gathered all that, now you're getting into what is called the decision process, where you've got the justified decision to make the selection or the purchase. You've fully engaged them. You've helped them understand and overcome the objectives. You've negotiated all of the terms. You've understood the established pilot metrics that you've kind of outlined based off your solution, the problem that you're trying to solve, because you understand the customer and the value that you're delivering to the individual customer. Now you've onboarded them. Now you've got full delivery because now you fully understand your value prop. Now you fully understand the pilot metrics, and now you fully understand, and now you have this cycle of continuous renewal of that individual customer. So the specifics of a buyer's journey can vary from buyer persona for any given solution. The framework remains constant. Though. The buyer's journey samples are this, and let's just look at just a B2B model, for a second here. You've got the search, evaluate, experiment, the purchase to retain, the customer's goals. But what I want you to understand is what are all the specific touch points? How does this individual looks at, buys, or looks for new solutions? Sometimes it's Google, sometimes it's help pages, sometimes it's it's price pages, blogs, case studies. Everyone has different touch points in how that whole buying process happens and what that process looks like. And this is another example of a healthcare insurance purchase journey and all the process that they walk through, from the awareness to research to choice reduction to purchase. And you look at all the specific touch points at the bottom from all the different touch points that they went through to come to the decision that this is the right healthcare plan for us. So it's not as simple as just, hey, I got a new product, I'm going to put up a website and I'm going to have everybody buy this product and they're going to want to buy it because I think it's great and my tech is cool. There's a process that a person goes through before they adopt the solution. And understanding that criteria is some of the things that I mentioned earlier. Understanding the customer and the value that you're delivering, the persona of the individual, how you're delivering the value, how do they hear about you, what are they hearing out there in the ecosystem as it relates to their industry, their problem they're trying to solve. All of that helps you to understand the individual touch points. So who does what and when is important. So now let's zero back out the bio journey's touch points. So when you look at it from the awareness all the way to from the discovery, consideration, decision, and the renew, all the way through that entire process, you see the different individuals and the stages of the touch points and how consistent you have to be with all of these individual stages to make sure that from an end-to-end solution, it's a lot to onboard a customer. And the more complicated the solution is, the more complicated to sell, especially if it's something technical, or if you're trying to sell into a medical space, or you have a medical device or a solution that you're trying to sell into a hospital. And most times that you think an orthopedic surgeon has this new hip replacement tool that he wants to use. And yeah, that person may want to use it, but then you have this thing that at hospitals called the value analysis committees. And they have to determine whether or not the efficacy of the device that they're trying to bring in, is it regulated? Is it safe? Will it reduce risk? Does it have a reimbursement strategy attached to it? All of these individual touch points that a hospital would have to go through before they onboard a device. You think of SaaS or SaaS sales, that's a long sales cycle. You know, that can be anywhere from 16 to 24 months, depending on the solution or the software, because there's so many different touch points. People got to buy, try, use, make sure it works well with their already existing legacy solutions. So there's so many things that have to go in from the customer discovery, where you're just discovering, all the way to this place of I found the customer and all the individual touch points. And so with that said, thank you for listening to this presentation, and I will stop, and then we can now jump into any questions that you guys may have.
Nakia, thank you so much for being able to share that and walking us through that journey, because that's really valuable to understand that it's more than just one customer that you're trying to understand. You're trying to get that persona, and you can only do that by speaking to more customers and better understanding what drives them to make that decision. So please, if anyone has any questions, please come off of mute, and would love to get you engaged in some discussion here.
Good. And I bet y'all didn't think I could get through 76 slides in 50 minutes, did you?
So Nakia, while some other members are looking at having some questions, Christina, I saw you come off, and would you like to ask a question?
Yes. Nakia, if you can comment on the changing dynamics of the buyer persona. I mean, are they more demanding now than ever, more educated? You know, could you comment on how we could be anticipating their needs a lot better? Are we asking more questions than ever before? I do want to say that I certainly learned a lot in the past couple of weeks with a student of ours that I worked with, Mike, who's made some very important customer discovery for my company. And so I just, two questions: how ever changing is the environment for these buyers, and are they more demanding more than ever?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that the buyers are a little bit more smarter, a little bit more educated, and they're in this age of information. They're inundated with information, and sometimes they don't know whether or not that information is right, wrong, and they don't know how to distill this to make the difference between what information they should follow and what information they should lead through. I think that the buyer or the customer now does ask a lot of questions. They're not just, we see this with the vaccine. You know, while Dr. Fauci has said they're safe, they're great, please use it, there's still a considerable amount of people who still question whether or not it is safe or not, because they have this understanding that unless it's an FDA approved thing, typically it's not considered safe. But yet we get that process. But we also have to understand that COVID-19 is not new. So coronavirus is not new. So they already are, they're not starting from scratch on, you know, is this new information? They're just kind of picking up from where they left off and kind of making it better. So I think we have to do a better job of listening to the customer, understanding their problem, understanding their pain, and understanding it in such a way that where we're asking them questions, they're asking us questions, and we're coming to what is the right solution that works for everyone. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh, you're on mute.
Just a quick question. You mentioned about 100 interviews going through the national program. So we've been asking everybody that's been participating to do about 10 customer discovery interviews between each session. Right. And so everyone that's been able to do that has come and shared what they're gaining from that experience. Now, can you share why 100 is a good number to shoot for in the national program, and how anybody that's interested in going on can best prepare? Because what they do now will not just give them 40, be halfway there if they do 50 of them in this regional program. How can they best prepare and learn from this customer discovery?
Right. Yeah. So 100, 200, or 300, the number is not magical. It's not the matter of the number. It is, you have to talk to enough people you have to have enough data points to see a consistent theme. And you'll start to see a consistent theme that will emerge between segments. And you'll start to see a problem that will continue to be uncovered or unpacked. And that's why we ask you to do the interviews, is because if you believe that your solution or problem serves this one particular customer, then we're looking for that theme. We're looking for, okay, if this customer segment said this, and I'm gonna go find the same person with the same job title doing the same job in a different company. And if they're having the same problem, then you know what, I found a customer segment that has the same problem. And so that's why we have you do all of the interviews. And like I said, it's not so much just kind of talking to customers for the sake of talking to customers. It's talking to customers to see if there's a consistent enough theme and a problem that you can solve, that you can find a repeatable, scalable business based on that.
And I'll just share one point that talking to customers is hard. Mm-hmm. But talking to customers and getting them to write a check is even harder. So doing this to determine what is driving their decision will help put everyone in a better place to be able to advance your startup. So did anybody else have any other questions before we wrap up? Fantastic. I want to thank you, Nakia, for joining us today. Wonderful presentation, and I was very impressed. I saw the slides and had no doubt you could get through them, but it was great content, and I think that it was very valuable for our audience to hear.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
See you.